Fuck, I'm recording. I'm going to start this video off by pissing some of you off out there, and as always, I'm not trying to intentionally offend anyone, as I'm just speaking my mind here, and you're free to like any game you want, so don't put too much stock into what I'm saying here, but with that said, here goes. Shenmue's a dull series, isn't it? I've not played the first one, but I've heard some very concerning things about that, as well as some funny things too. I've only played the second one, of which I owned for a long time but never got around to finishing it. That was until last year when I sat down and saw it through from start to finish. And I know how loved this franchise is, and there were certain parts about it that were very commendable, and it was certainly a revolutionary franchise for its time. But that's the thing with Shenmue, it was fantastic for its time, but now that time has passed, I'm only seeing the cracks in it now. For all of its openness and graphics, I find myself concluding that Shenmue, as a series, doesn't have much going for it. There's a big emphasis on waiting around for the in-game clock to reach a certain point. There's way too much going up to one person, talking to them, then going up to another person to talk to them. There's actions and fight scenes, sure, but the combat looks like it was taken straight from Virtua Fighter and hasn't really been improved upon. Which I think was actually the case. And while you're free to wander around the place and do the odd bit of side activity, there's not much here for you. You can get a part-time job. Okay, maybe not. There's gambling. You could try a game of Lucky Hit. You can buy some stuff, and if you're feeling adventurous, you can sell some stuff too. I know, talk about pushing the boat out. In all fairness though, Shenmue 2 does have duck racing, so hats off to it for that. And it's just that I remembered hearing about this franchise when I was still at school, and I remember someone telling me, "Oh my god, this game is amazing, you have to try it! You can go out and explore the place. You can even get a part-time job and earn money!" Yeah, I think I'll pass. The characters aren't particularly likeable, with Ryu becoming an unintentional joke since then. The story isn't particularly good, the combat feels outdated. It's a big game, sure, but for some reason it just kind of feels empty, and there's a big emphasis on killing time and doing fuck all while you wait for the plot to advance. And when I finished Shenmue 2, I just remember thinking to myself, make the characters more interesting, make the combat more entertaining to watch, make the story a lot more fun and action-packed, let us do cool stuff if you're going to make us wait, and let there be fun ways to make money. In conclusion, Shenmue 2 was a great game for its time, but that's only because it was one of the first to try out a realistic open world setting involving times of day, jobs, and NPCs being active at certain times. However, despite being well received and quite fun when it came out, it failed to hold up over the years to the point where now I wouldn't exactly recommend playing this today. Maybe there's another franchise out there that does this better, and maybe we'll be able to see what it'd be like if certain drastic improvements were made, but for the time being, I can only call the Shenmue series the old man of video games. Hang on, wasn't I supposed to be talking about a different game in this video? That's right, cause it's Yakuza 0, boy! And holy fuck, why is it only now I'm finding out about this series? I recently played this as it was released on Steam not too long ago, and to get the obvious out of the way first, holy shit, it's a PC port. Though not as bad as other PC ports out there, but apparently only real Yakuza use a gamepad. Discuss. Simply put, the Yakuza series is exactly what I wanted Shenmue to be. It uses the same formula and has very similar characteristics to it, but it's taken note of what Shenmue didn't do and overcompensated for it instead. The story is awesome, the fighting is comically brutal, the characters are supposed to be serious yet come across as unintentionally funny, though this was certainly intentional on the devs' half. And even if the main story is boring you and you just want to go off, earn money and do stuff, well then fuck my ass does this game have you covered. But let's dial it back a little bit and discuss the setting first. Yakuza 0 is a prequel to the rest of the long-standing franchise, which is set in Kamurocho and another place that I forget, which I believe are fictional districts in Tokyo. The game takes place in the 1980s and heavily involves around various Yakuza clans. The story is told through the eyes of two characters. Kiryu Kazuma, initially a low-ranking member of the Dojima clan who was framed for a murder that he didn't commit, and Goro Majima, an ex-Yakuza who has fallen out of grace and is trying to earn his way back into the clan. The story follows each in turn, spending 2 chapters at a time with one character before changing over to the other, and each character being locked to one of 2 districts of Tokyo that you'll be playing in. So now that the story is set, what's the point of this game? The answer to that is, I don't know. But that's not a bad thing, and here's why. Despite there being a main story to follow, and it's certainly interesting, don't get me wrong, unlike Shenmue that makes you stand around for a while for the plot to progress, or demands that you earn a certain amount of money before the story progresses, Yakuza 0 has the opposite problem. Which isn't even a problem if I'm honest. For you see, what's holding you back from continuing with the main story in this game is not the game's fault at all. What's constantly stopping you from continuing with the game is, well, to put it bluntly, it's you who's preventing you from carrying on with the plot. Because unlike Shenmue, which doesn't really give you much to do outside of the main story, Yakuza 0 throws an unholy amount of side activities at you, side quests and sub-stories, mini-games, collectibles, money-making activities, and seemingly random events that are so enjoyable and fun that it gets to the point where the main story itself seems like the distraction from the main game rather than the other way around. I found myself playing for hours upon hours on end, doing other stuff around the map without even once thinking that, oh, maybe I should pick up the main story again. No, I was thinking, right girls, let's get some levels here so we can wipe the floor with Club Venus in the next Cabaret Club battle. Or, gotta try and beat my top score at this song. I know I can do it. So fucking close. Come on True, do it you pussy. And even then, there are so many sub-stories, which are like small side quests, that it'll get to the point where just walking down one street will trigger like 3 of them. And Yakuza knows how to do side missions. As much as I love games like Elder Scrolls and Final Fantasy XIV and whatnot, I am sick and bloody tired of quests that go, I'm in need of an item, please go and fetch it from either a cave or by killing X amount of a particular creature. Those quests are so fucking dull because they're a dime a dozen. Yet Yakuza 0's quests, on the other hand, are so well written and often bizarre that you'll happily do any of them here just to see what happens. There's no real reward for doing quests, but they're just so fun that you just can't look away from the screen. There's a quest where you have to help a dominatrix get better at her job. There's a stealth mission where you have to get a porn mag for a kid without anyone spotting you. There's a quest where you pretend to be a TV producer. One where you infiltrate a religious cult and end up getting tested on their teachings before beating up their leader. Another one where you have to protect Michael Jackson as zombie actors try to kill him. One of my favourite quests is where you find a black market dealer who won't sell anything to you unless you give him a password. So you talk to one of his buyers and he says that he'll only give you the password if you do him a favour. He then gives you 2 code phrases that you need to remember and say them to this other girl. She then sets a group of dudes on you who you have to beat up, after which she gives you another 2 code phrases to give to the first guy. You pass this on and the guy gives you the password. So you go back to the black market dealer, say the password, and then Kiryu gets so happy that he remembered it that he goes, yes, I remembered it, and just walks off without seeing what the dealer is selling. And that's the quest! Kiryu just wanted to satisfy his curiosity. That is the whole quest. You don't find stuff like this in other games. And even putting the side quests and sub-stories to the side, the amount of extra content is staggering. The map size is pretty small compared to your average open-world sandbox game, yet despite its size, the Yakuza map is jam-filled with stuff to do that the size doesn't matter. You can do karaoke, there's darts, pool, remote control kart racing, dance-offs, mahjong, shogi, porno, blackjack, poker and roulette, fishing, crane games, bowling, dramatically answering the phone, actual retro Sega arcade games, baseball, this shit. And each of these will more often than not lead you onto other side quests as well, to the point where you're convinced that the side activities just never stop. And that's great. You're not forced to do any of this stuff, but it's like the game has laid out this huge buffet of enjoyable delicacies, and you're welcome to not have any of it, or to devour the lot, it's up to you. You've also got a more substantial minigame for each character. With Kiryu running a real estate business, we have to buy up certain properties throughout the district and protect them from rival companies. while Majima gets to run a cabaret club where you have to entertain guests by letting them talk to your hired girls so that they can spend all of their life savings on them, all in the name of driving 5 rival clubs out of business. I spent way more time than I should have on this particular minigame, as I found it strangely enjoyable, though it does mainly consist of this. As well as the same cutscene over and over again where Majima hands literally nothing over to the customer before giving the girls a thumbs up. But these are your main money-making activities, so it's probably worth investing some time into them. And let's not forget the combat, in all of its brutal glory. It's quite simplistic here, with light attacks, heavy attacks, grapples, dodges and blocks. There's a wide variety of combos to learn and improve upon as well as finishing moves which never get old no matter how many times you watch them, because they're always way over the top, extremely painful to observe, and usually involve the face. You can also select between 3 fighting styles initially, with a 4th being unlocked when you complete either the real estate minigame for Kiryu or the club management for Majima, and some of these styles are just amazing to watch. I honestly preferred Majima's fighting style, as one of his is based off of breakdancing moves, while the other lets you carry a fucking baseball bat into battle. Having said that, his 4th one lets you carry a small sword as well, and is just pure glory to behold. And you better believe that you'll be using these skills a lot, because this game is jammed to the brim with fight scenes. And I'm not just referring to the main story. You'll get attacked in sub-stories, out in the streets. There's also what's known as Mr. Shakedown, who's essentially a random encounter, but is like a boss-level fighter. Win against him and you'll earn a massive payout. Lose against him, however, and say bye-bye to all of your money. You can also take up fighting lessons with certain characters, which will unlock new abilities and moves that could come in handy. And even during fights, you're not necessarily locked into using just your fists. You can pick up drop weapons from other combatants, like clubs, swords, even guns. You can pick up bicycles, signs, trash cans, even street furniture. Yeah, you can pick up benches and hit people over the head with them. Bar stools, coffee tables, you name it. If you see something lying around during battle, then there's a good chance you can pick it up and kill someone with it. However, that's not to say that everything in this game is 10 out of 10, as there are parts that certainly didn't tickle my fancy. The girly wrestling, for example, was just a glorified game of rock, paper, scissors. The real estate game involves Kiryu walking up to a building and showing a large suitcase full of money to the front door, like he's making a deal with the door itself and not the owner. I'd love to be a passerby when this was happening and wonder why some random dude is offering a large case of money to, well, no one. And this is followed by the occasional moments where you have to beat people up. Even the main story is hit and miss in places. It's pretty slow to get going, and there are moments where things just seem to drag. Characters will just repeat what we already know over and over again during cutscenes. It certainly does get better much later on in the game, and the ending is quite climactic too, if not a little strange, where Majima decides that the most notable and enjoyable way to live life is by going insane. Like, I get that he's this crazy character in the rest of the franchise, but this is the first game I've played in the series, and though he was a little quirky at best, it does kind of feel like another case of, and then he became Darth Vader, if you know what I'm talking about. As in, a character needs to change dramatically, so the story just kind of caves into pressure, flips the switch, and then the change has suddenly happened without it happening during a gradual process, like what happens with Anakin in Star Wars Episode 3. The upgrading system is pretty lackluster if I'm honest here. You spend money, and lots of it, to improve your fighting skills and techniques, with each upgrade in the outer sections of each technique costing 500 million yen to upgrade, which is a little too much if I'm honest, and by the time you do fully upgrade something, you've probably already finished the main story. And while I do like the fact that you're given a choice of which fighting style you want to use, that does mean that most players will find the one technique that they prefer over the others, and then just not use those others. As Kiryu, I stuck with Brawler, and that got me through the game just fine. As Majima, I went with Slugger, which made me incredibly overpowered, as there's a combo which renders you pretty much untouchable. That was until I unlocked his 4th technique, which was so entertaining to watch, I just stuck with that. It did mean that enemies were getting more hits in, but it was just such a joy to behold that I was happy to take the extra punches. I was also a little gutted that there wasn't an option to switch between characters whenever I wanted to. Though you do get this option right at the end of the game, I would have liked to have been given the option much earlier on. I'll hold my hands up here and say that I actually really enjoyed the Cabaret Club minigame, and thus spent more time playing through Majima's chapters than Kiryu's ones. And I was a little disappointed that I wasn't able to switch back to Majima between Kiryu's missions to do some more club shit. Not to say I was bored or anything, I don't think that's even possible in this game, but for a game that seems to want to give me an insane amount of fun activities to do in my downtime, I thought it was a shame how you're locked into one character during each chapter. Finally, while I'd say that this game certainly isn't a serious one, it does flip between gritty and silly quite often. One moment you'll be faced with the internal power struggles of the various Yakuza clans along with many threats of death and violence, but then this is usually followed up with There are some very serious moments in this game where you could cut the tension in the air with a knife, but there are also plenty of downright silly and ridiculous moments here too. And I love all of it, don't get me wrong, but at the same time, it does mean that this game's tone is incredibly inconsistent. If anything, it's consistent with its inconsistencies. In conclusion, but for real this time, why are you still watching this video? Go and get this game! This game has been available for the PS4 since the beginning of last year, and it became available on Steam in August, so if you're a PC whore like I am, then now's your chance to get in on the action. This game was an absolute pleasure to play, and is easily the best game I've played this year. I've played some good ones this year, and I've certainly had fun trying out new stuff. But Yakuza 0 was the game I didn't know I wanted until I played it. And thanks to this, I can now safely say that I'm invested in the series, having bought both 4 and 5 off the PlayStation Network the other day, and I'm extremely looking forward to giving those a go at some point. If you're a die-hard fan of something like Shenmue, but wanted to see it taken to great new heights, or even if you wanted to play something that's just fun that you can dip in and out of whenever you feel like it, or if you just want to get lost in a medium-sized game, but where one single street has about 4 very unique and vastly different activities and cool stuff to try out going on, as you completely forget that this game has an actual main story, then this game is definitely for you. This comes at the highest recommendation from me, and you'll be hard-pressed to find any other game out there that tries to cater to the player as much as this game does. Now, if you don't mind seeing yourself out, I want to finish watching this purely educational video I was watching before you all so rudely interrupted me. Oh yeah, I like